Happy Wisdom Wednesday, everyone. So this week's book, a thin one, but a very valuable one, comes from the great Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, called Meditations. Now, this book is one that I try and read through every year. There's this old saying that if there's a book that's worth reading once, it's worth reading multiple times. So Marcus Aurelius took over the imperial throne for the Roman Empire, and he had a journal where he wrote his reflections down. Now, in the wake and in the face of natural disasters, war, death, famine, all kinds of things that were completely out of his control, he wrote his reflections down and came up with this journal of how he coped with things that were completely out of control and focused more on things that he did have control on, which was his will and his perception. And this is where a lot of the ideas of stoicism come from. And so I actually came up with 5 life-changing tips that I've actually implemented from this book. There's also a great YouTuber named Andrew Kirby, whose work I really liked a lot, that he put a nice video together and kind of gave me some ideas of what I can present to you today. So let's go through some of these tips. So the first tip is called contemplation of the sage. So contemplation of the sage, for Marcus Aurelius, he prayed to Zeno. But the idea is when you go to bed at night, you think about what the great people that you look up to would do. Not necessarily your parents, but some people even greater than that. People who you really look up to and admire. That's why I think a lot of Christians, they have the "What Would Jesus Do" bracelets. For me, I have a variety of mentors, both living and dead, who I look up to. And the whole point of this is that you take your emotions out of these hardships you face in life and these decisions, and you objectively think about how would this great leader react in this situation? How would this great person serve these people? And the YouTuber I mentioned earlier, Andrew Kirby, something that he came up with that I actually liked, I would like to show you, is to take it a step further and not necessarily just always comparing yourself to other people, but comparing yourself to who you could be tomorrow. And I want to take you all over to the whiteboard here real quickly and show you this concept. This is a psychological concept. Jordan Peterson actually presents this in his book, Maps of Meaning. And so the first step is start comparing yourself to who you were yesterday, right? Because as long as you improve, that's what's important, your progress. Then from there, you start contemplating and reflecting on who you were today and who you are currently. And this sets you up so you can move forward, because we all have goals that we want to achieve. These are the things that we want. But that puts us in a position to start contemplating who we could be tomorrow. See, the point is, self-esteem is important. You have to, like who you are, right? And appreciate who you are today. But you have to have self-respect to ask yourself, who could I be tomorrow? What's left in me? Because I could always be greater, right? Jim Rohn has this great saying that, set a goal so high, right, for who you would have to become to achieve it. And that's really what we should start focusing on. So let's go back to the other side of the room and finish up this list of 5. So what's left on the list? So number 2, a view from above. The view from above is kind of like a bird's eye view of you. So every day try practicing this meditation where you physically picture yourself, picture your body, and start zooming out, just like in a video game, to above your head, then outside of your home, to the neighborhood you live in, the city, the world, etc., etc. And while you're doing this, just put things in perspective about how small your problems really are. It starts putting into your head the kind of problems that exist outside of your home, outside of the head, your mind, in terms of the people who are out there who don't have the type of job that you have, who don't have the nice home, the food that you have, right? And it really makes your problems much, much smaller. And that's the idea. We get caught up in our head, and to quote somebody else, Tony Robbins loves saying the quote, if you're in your head, you're dead. And the idea is, once we get focused on our problems, the stories we tell ourselves in our head, we make them a lot bigger than they are. And the key to solving those problems is making them small, so you can look at them from a distance, from a better perspective, and objectively think of how you're going to solve them. Now, number 3, physical exercise. Marcus Aurelius really focused on the value of physical exercise, and for somebody who wrote this book hundreds of centuries ago, He had this right. Modern medicine has shown that if you're above the age of 60, the best thing you can do to keep your mind sharp is exercise. People who exercise, a lot above the age of 60, you can see the sharpness of their mind reverse back to the time when they were maybe 40 or 50 years old. I've seen this with my own parents. The moment I got them to work out, and both of them are above the age of 60, their minds have gotten sharper, they look better, they're healthier, they're happier, right? For me, every morning I've committed for the last couple years, every morning, no matter whether I'm sick or anything, I have to do 100 push-ups. And I've sort of added to that routine. So add something like that to your routine. Commit to doing just 10 push-ups every morning. The idea is discipline and commitment, okay? Fourth thing, meditation. And of course, this book is called Meditations. So the point of meditation, and Andy Puddicombe from Headspace is somebody who I look up to. I've been meditating every day because of him and the app Headspace, I think for well over 3 years now, every day straight. The idea is you learn how to put your mind into, let's say, a river and pretend that you're a stone and the water flowing around you is all your emotions. So that little by little you can objectively sit in that river of emotions with everything flowing around you, whether it's anger, sadness, happiness. And just like a rock stuck at the bottom of a river, you can objectively observe these emotions going through. With Marcus Aurelius, again, he was an emperor, he was a warrior, he was a general. So he dealt with a lot of tragedy in life, deaths, failures, and it was important for him as a stoic to detach himself. And that doesn't mean to completely ignore your emotions. The importance is understanding those emotions and observing them. And I'll tell you, one thing that I've learned is when you get very angry, right? That's your primitive brain acting out. The moment that you speak the words and say to yourself, oops, I think I'm getting angry. The moment you recognize it, it's as if the lizard brain crawls back under the rock from where it came from, and then you're not as angry anymore. That's the idea, is that we want to use our mind to have control over our brain, which is a primitive tool, right? And lastly, daily review. Every day as professionals, we have great wins, we have failures throughout the day, we have reflections. We will forget those things over time, and our brain will find ways to rationalize random events and come up with its own story as to why things happened. It's important at the end of every day, sit down. It'll take only a minute of your time. Write down 3 things that you're grateful for, things that you're very happy that happened actually, wins, for example. And then at the same time, write down 3 things that you observe that you could improve on. Maybe you need to be better about planning your day. Maybe you need to be better about saying no. Maybe you need to be better about the way you act in meetings and the way you react to people. So again, these are 5 life-changing tips. Again, if you want to listen to me, try and implement these things. And what I would say is, when it comes to bad habits, psychologically, it's easier to lump a bunch of bad habits together and drop them all at once. So if you drink a lot of booze, you eat junk food, and you stay up late, those things are probably related in some way, shape, or form. So you can lump bad habits and drop them all at the same time. With good habits, though, don't overload yourself and try and do all of these at once. Do one at a time. The idea is little progression, right? Little by little. Shoot for the moon and the stars, but every day set yourself little goals. So for this week, maybe just start identifying. Ask yourself, who do you really look up to, right? Who are the mentors, the people living and dead that you would like to emulate? Maybe borrow ideas from, borrow how they act and lead, and then start coming up with a picture of your mind of who's the ultimate version of yourself, the most self-actualized version of you, and start from there. And then after 30 days, start adding these other things, okay? So that's your book of the week. I hope you go out and get it. Buy the physical copy and keep it in your library. Mark it up and see how you're going to grow over the years. I promise that you will. And as always, happy Wisdom Wednesday.